If your only goal is to pick up a new hobby, try absolutely anything. There's no constraint. Anyone can learn anything.
Totally.
There's no such thing as like, drawing's not for me, or I can't sing.
Hey, welcome back to Three Bosses Walk Into a Room and Nothing Gets Done. So last time we were discussing language and sounds, and we kind of ended up discussing more after we finished recording, and we found a lot of good stuff to dive back into. It's really interesting because I think a lot of celebrated works of art throughout history have come out of unusual constraints, or what at the time might have felt like less than ideal circumstances. And yet the Sistine Chapel ceiling, for instance, Michelangelo was not a painter by trade, he was a sculptor, and yet this is celebrated as one of his greatest works. Dr. Seuss, on the other hand, he was a writer and an illustrator, but what I've heard is that at one point he actually had a bet with his publisher that he could write a book using no more than 50 unique words. It's kind of a silly constraint, and I'm sure the book would have done just as well with 49 or 51 words, but he won that bet, and Green Eggs and Ham turned out to be one of his best-selling books.
Just goes to show you, constraints have a way of refining creativity.
Totally. Yeah, when you have a blank page, it's the scariest thing because you can do anything with it, which also means that if you do something crappy, then that's your fault. You screwed up your opportunity.
Right.
But if you already have a scribble-filled page and you do something interesting in one of the little corners, well, then you've done something really creative and great, and you've used maybe a bad situation and turned it into something that is slightly more positive.
I've never thought about that before, but I think you just uncovered something pretty interesting. I like your point about the morality involved. Like, we feel like we're to blame if a blank page is made worse by our scribblings, right?
Totally.
You took a perfectly good opportunity and you failed.
Totally.
But if there's something already on there that pre-exists and then you work within those confines, you feel less to blame if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, I think assigning blame also, I wonder, is that particular to our culture as Americans that we would feel guilty for ruining an opportunity? Or is that more of a universal human trait that when you fail, you feel ashamed?
I don't know. I can imagine there might be some cultures that are just totally cool with it.
I hope so. Those people,
I hope so. Yeah,
are doing it right, because like the mantra,
kids are cool with it. Kids are cool with it.
Yeah, a lot of times until they've been set up to have this feeling that it's really important that they do this right. Like as soon as they feel like they're performing, then it's stressful.
Yes,
but
I think by default they're cool with it. It's all play to them.
Just figuring it out. Yeah.
That's why people always say, think like a kid and have a beginner's mindset, because they just explore and enjoy it.
I've been thinking recently, so I've been developing skills in a new hobby. And I look at my work and I look at, I don't know if they're officially professionals, but you can find anything on YouTube. So I find people on YouTube who are doing this work also. And my work is not good, obviously. Like I've just started this thing, maybe in the last 6 months, I've started taking it seriously and putting a lot more time into it. And
you're right at the start.
Exactly. But I realized that a lot of the people making these tutorials say, look, number one thing, if you're excited about this, don't give up.
Right.
Because so many people just start and they give up. And I was asking myself, like, why does this come about that people give up? And I think when we're kids, any crappy, terrible drawing is celebrated.
Right.
Oh, it's so great. We'll put it on the fridge. We'll hang it on the wall, whatever, oh, thank you so much for drawing this elephant and or rabbit. I don't know what it is, but it's beautiful and I love it. And like that kind of reward that people get just for trying, just for doing anything, I think really helps children develop the confidence to continue making things. But as we get older and we start developing real skills and we see other people with even greater skills, we start creating these expectations for ourselves that we need to be able to perform at this level.
Right.
If I'm not a professional, then my work, my performance is just bad and I shouldn't even do it. And it's like, well, nobody started painting a masterpiece because that masterpiece is a piece probably near the end of a very long career of dedicated practice. And they say like 10,000 hours, but it's hard to conceive. That's 66 weeks or something of nonstop practice. So you're talking about a year and 3 months of no sleep, no rest, doing nothing but practicing. Yeah, you're going to be incredible.
Yep.
If you're not doing it 24 hours a day, you're actually doing it, let's say 1 hour a day. That feels like a big commitment, actually. 1 hour a day, every single day to be able to do this thing. Well, great. Now it's going to take 24 times as long. So for you to get 1 hour a day, every single day, no matter what, no vacations, no breaks, no stops. It's going to take you, 24 years to get your 10,000 hours?
Right.
And imagine how good you'll be after practicing an hour a day for 24 years.
Yeah. Right.
Especially for adults, I think it's hard when you see like a 16-year-old who is just this incredible artist. It's like, okay, yeah, but if you consider the factors of their life, like they don't have TV at home, they don't have a lot of friends maybe, and literally this is a thing that they do. Every day they come home from school and they spend the next 5 hours drawing. Okay, 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, you're getting to that 10,000 hours a lot faster. And after a few years, you're going to be excellent. So for an adult to compare yourself when you got bills and you got work and you need to go grocery shopping, because if you don't, then there's no food in the house and you have to eat at some point. And that means that you got to prepare your meals. You don't have somebody doing that for you. It's just a longer timeline.
Right.
When you kind of set yourself up like that and you look at that, well, it just feels so far away that you're going to get to this masterpiece, or you didn't achieve those results quickly. And so people kind of feel bad and they say, I can't draw. Drawing's not for me. It's like, well, compare yourself to like a 3-year-old child. That 3-year-old child definitely has spent more hours in the last 3 years drawing than you have.
Right.
And you can still probably draw better than them. So you're already ahead of the curve in that regard. And at that point, just compare yourself to a comparable child.
Right.
And you'll probably feel great about any modicum of skill.
Yeah, I think like my answer to these questions has slowly changed over the years. I do think if your only goal is to pick up a new hobby, try absolutely anything. There's no constraint. Anyone can learn anything.
Totally.
There's no such thing as like drawing's not for me or I can't sing.
I do feel like a lot of people would be a lot happier having more ways of expressing themselves. And especially, I think like artistic hobbies, if you can get to a place where you're doing it just for you,
right,
that's beautiful. That's perfect, because maybe you can see progress, maybe you can't, but it doesn't matter, because if you can just derive satisfaction and happiness from the activity without needing it to be externally praised or anything else, like
right,
there is a place for you to feel like you can be validated and you can be seen, and you don't necessarily need anybody to see it.
Right.
But just not feeling bottled up, I think, makes a huge difference for people.
And on the other hand, what I tell people when they ask about like more serious high stakes stuff, like how do I increase my income or what do I pivot my career to? It changes. Like I would say, identify your strengths, identify your existing experiences, and find the intersection between what you know you're good at, what the market needs, and what you think would be fun for you. Those three things.
Totally.
Like you're good at it, you enjoy it, and the market needs it. Like people will pay for that.
Totally.
Because then that filters out like, I weigh like, I don't know, 168 pounds or whatever. I'm never going to be a linebacker, right? Or like it filters out the obvious things, which are like bad calculations for some individual based on what they're starting. Their predispositions are like what they're starting with.
I definitely feel like it's important to emphasize there, though, that it's something that you enjoy. I know so many people who are like, well, I'm good at math. I'm good at following rules, so I should become an accountant or something like that. And I know people who actually really enjoy accounting. So it's not that accounting is wrong. But if you don't like spreadsheets and the little puzzle of figuring out where do the numbers go, that's probably not a good career for you.
Right.
But there might be something that you really love. And like maybe actually it's not what you're going to think of because it doesn't have a guaranteed lucrative result.
I think there's a lot of stuff though where it all leads to like the same shit. So what I mean is maybe in the beginning you don't like accounting, but like at some point you're going to progress and get promoted, and then you're just people managing. And then after you get really good at people managing, then you're just bringing in new business.
Sure.
Right. And then you get really good at bringing in new business, which involves a new skill set like sales and whatever. Then at that point, you're like, okay, I'm going to go start my own firm. So now you're like learning how to run a business. And then, finally you make it to chief financial officer or CEO or whatever. Like, and I feel like a lot of paths just follow this same ladder where, for a couple of years you grind.
Totally.
And you're an individual contributor and you learn some craft. And maybe it's boring and repetitive.
Yeah.
But guess what? Like most crafts, if that's all you get to do for a year, become boring and repetitive.
Exactly.
And so then the next skill that you learn is people management. And then the next skill that you learn is bring in new business or marketing or whatever, distribution channels, or it's some kind of design skill involved with orchestrating resources and increasing profitability, decreasing spend, and learning about the organization's internals and the topology of a business. And then you keep moving up to, more executive leadership or whatever. It's like, it doesn't matter what you do. It could be accounting, it could be law, it could be
Totally.
Marketing, but they all sort of start to filter up to these like ladders and funnels that we've created in the marketplace. So what I'm trying to say is it almost doesn't matter to some extent. I'm sure that there's a million exceptions to this, right? But like pick something.
Exactly.
Because you're going to end up figuring out, oh, I do want to do people management, or no, I want to stay away from people management. So I want to be a technical leader.
Yeah.
Oh, I love technical leadership, which means I should join a different kind of company. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
It starts to become less, I don't know if this is the right like metaphor to use, but like less vertical and more horizontal.
Sure. Yeah. In terms of
if by vertical you mean, oh, I'm picking medicine, or I'm picking law, or I'm picking finance.
I see.
Right. That would be like a vertical way to pick what you do.
Yeah.
Versus like a horizontal way. Like I really love people management, or I really love working across.
So like a type of work rather than an industry is what it feels like you're saying.
Exactly. Because I do think that's where people start to differentiate themselves. Like some people, I've talked to some people that are just like, yeah, I wanted to start my own company, but then I decided that wasn't for me. I just love being a manager. That's what I love.
For sure.
Or like I've talked to people who want to stay individual contributor too.
I feel like I hear that a lot, actually. You and I are more exposed to people in tech and in the software industry just because that's where we happen to work. Mm-hmm. But I know a lot of engineers who just want to stay engineers. And I like drinking coffee. I like going to cafes, and I often end up chatting with baristas. And a lot of the baristas I know, especially the really talented ones, absolutely, I think, could go and open their own cafe. Mm-hmm. But why don't they? And if it's a financial constraint, like maybe they're nervous about taking on the loan, or they don't want to do it all themselves or whatever. But honestly, I think a lot of the people I've met, they really enjoy the work that they're doing. Mm-hmm. And the additional responsibility of managing supplies, or being a supervisor, or creating schedules, or whatever it may be. That's a lot of work. That's not the thing that they love. And I have talked to a lot of people actually who come to me similarly, who are interested in, how do I get into tech? How do I get a higher salary? How do I change my life in this particular way? Mm-hmm. I used to say, well, anybody can be a designer, anybody can be an engineer. And I still completely believe that. But mm-hmm. at the same time, I think that it's just a lot better if people pursue things that make them genuinely happy. Because I don't really feel like the people in tech who are doing it just for the money and don't really love making these things are happy.
Right.
And, I guess we kind of touched on this last time, but if you do something that makes you happy, you make the world happy. Mm-hmm. And that might just be your little corner of the world, but that can still have this rippling effect.
I think that's a really nice sentiment. Hopefully we're making our little corner of the world happier with this show. If you liked what you heard, drop us a like, and be sure to come back next week for episode 5 of Boss Radio.